Ox Cart Man, and it's written by Donald Hall, and the pictures are by Barbara Cooney. In October, he packed his ox into his cart, and he and his family filled it up with everything they had made or grew all year long that was left over. He packed a bag of wool he sheared from the sheep in April. He packed a shawl his wife wove on a loom from yarn spun at the spinning wheel. He packed 5 pairs of mittens his daughter knit from yarn spun in the spinning wheel from sheep sheared in April. He packed candles the family made. He packed linen made from flax they grew. He packed shingles he split himself. He packed birch brooms his son carved with a borrowed kitchen knife. He packed potatoes they dug from the garden, but first he counted out the potatoes, enough to eat all winter, and potatoes for seeds next spring. He packed a barrel of apples, honey and honeycombs, turnips and cabbages, a wooden box of maple sugar from the maples they tapped in March, when they had boiled and boiled and boiled the sap away. He packed a bag of goose feathers that his children collected from the barnyard geese. When his cart was full, he waved goodbye to his wife, his daughter, and his son, and he walked at his ox's head for 10 days, over the hills, through the valleys, by streams, past farms and the villages, until he came to Portsmouth, in Portsmouth Market. He sold the bag of wool. He sold the shawl his wife had made. He sold the 5 pairs of mittens, the candles, and the shingles. He sold the birch brooms, the potatoes, the apples, the honey and honeycombs, the turnips, and the cabbage. He sold the maple sugar. He sold the bag of goose feathers. Then he sold the wooden box that carried the maple sugar. He sold the barrel that carried the apples. He sold the bag that he carried the potatoes in. And then he sold his ox cart. Then he even sold his ox and kissed him goodbye on his nose. Then he sold the ox's yoke and harness, and with his pocket full of coins, he walked through Portsmouth Market. He bought an iron kettle to hang over the fire at home, and for his daughter, he bought an embroidery needle that came from a boat in the harbor that had sailed all the way from England. And for his son, he bought him a new knife for carving birch brooms with. And for the whole family, he bought 2 pounds of wintergreen peppermint candies. Then he walked home with the needle and the knife and the wintergreen peppermint candies tucked into the kettle. He put a stick over his shoulder, stuck the kettle's handle through, and with the coins still in his pocket, he walked past farms and villages and over hills and through valleys and by streams until he came back to his farm, and his son, his daughter, and his wife were waiting for him. He gave his daughter the needle, and she began to stitch. His son took the Barlow knife and started to whittle, and they cooked dinner in their new kettle, and afterwards everyone ate wintergreen peppermint candy. And that night the ox cart man sat in front of his fire, stitching a new harness for the young ox that was in the barn. He carved a new yoke, and he sawed planks for a new cart, and he split shingles all winter long. While his wife made flax into linen all winter, and his daughter embroidered all winter, and his son carved brooms from birch all winter, and everyone made candles. And in March they tapped the sugar maple trees and boiled the sap down. And in April they sheared the sheep and spun the yarn and wove and knitted. And in May they planted potatoes, turnips, and cabbages, while apple blossoms bloomed and fell, while bees woke, starting to make new honey. And the geese squawked in the barnyard, dropping their feathers as soft as clouds.